Tonight, the personal information of millions of Albertans posted online by a separatist group.
I think it's bullshit.
At no point did I consent to that to be given away to any third party, so why was it?
The database has now been taken down, but has the damage already been done? Canada's immigration minister under fire after a former member of a terrorist group nearly entered the country.
It is absolutely disgusting.
The push for accountability.
How are they allowed to get to the airport?
And new evidence AI can help in emergency rooms.
It can solve diagnoses better than humans, which is exciting.
The balancing act aimed at helping patients and the potential downside of overusing the tech.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight in Alberta, where urgent action has been taken to protect the personal information of millions of voters. That sensitive data, which is illegal to share, ended up in the hands of a group that promotes Alberta's separation from Canada. The privacy breach only resolved after a judge ordered the information be taken down from the group's website. Well, tonight, there is new indication Alberta RCMP is investigating and clear evidence many Albertans whose information was exposed are furious. Aaron Collins now with how this all went down.
1, 2, 3, 4.
A rare show of force by Elections Alberta, flanked by Edmonton police crashing this town hall held by the pro-separatist Centurion Project.
There is a concern that your organization is in possession of and using the list of electors.
Well, that organization alleged to have millions of Albertans' personal information from a provincial voters list, using that data to help organize its drive for independence.
Someone at Elections Alberta decided to make a big scene by having 10 cop cars drive through Edmonton and having people show up here.
In a statement, the Centurion Project says it was only using the list to find people its volunteers already knew, and that it will comply with the Elections Alberta investigation. Elections Alberta says it traced the list to one given to the separatist Republican Party of Alberta, which got the data legitimately because it ran a candidate in a provincial by-election last year. It's unclear how the Centurion Project got the list, but Elections Alberta says sharing it breaks the law. And having their information shared so publicly doesn't sit well with some Albertans.
I think it's bullshit.
Well, if it's not supposed to be, it shouldn't be.
At no point did I consent to that to be given away to any third party, so why was it?
All this as the push to get a referendum on Alberta's sovereignty heats up, and experts say the data could help bolster the separatist voter turnout.
Being able to have a list of all of the registered electors and reaching out to them, making sure they go to vote, is a huge advantage.
Alberta's independence movement could use the help. A recent poll suggests momentum for sovereignty has stalled. 27% of Albertans saying they would vote for independence now, compared to 28% last year.
Despite all the activity over the last year, raising signatures and holding rallies, it doesn't seem like too many people were persuaded to change sides.
Alberta's separatists say they do have enough signatures to trigger a referendum, but the certification of that petition is being held up in court. If a vote on Alberta independence is to happen, it'll go down in October. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
In Calgary, a homicide investigation is underway tonight after 2 young children were found dead in a vehicle.
We still need to identify who the children are, and at that point we can then start to look at who their parents are, who is responsible, and what actually happened.
Investigators found the children in a stopped SUV near a police station in the northwest part of the city. Both victims are believed to be under 10 years old. A man was arrested near the scene and remains in custody. Investigators are looking into what his relationship was to the children.
It is very hard on our officers. Our officers are human, and this is heartbreaking for everyone.
Police say there's no current threat to the public and work is ongoing to track down witnesses. Well, tonight, the federal government is admitting it made a mistake by nearly allowing an Iranian soccer official into Canada despite his past ties to a terrorist group. Olivia Stefanovic shows us the questions Ottawa is facing over safety and security as Canada prepares for a flood of World Cup crowds.
Islamic Republic of Iran, absent.
Iran, the only participating nation with representatives missing at a FIFA Congress ahead of the World Cup.
Of course, Iran will be participating at the FIFA World Cup 2026.
The Iranian delegation denied entry by the Canada Border Services Agency, including Iranian Football Federation President Mehdi Taj, a former commander in the terrorist entity, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
They need to remember that IRGC is nothing and has done nothing but killing innocent people.
No members have entered the country. Action has been taken appropriately.
But Canadian immigration officials did greenlight Taj and the rest of the Iranian delegation to fly to Toronto Pearson Airport.
It is absolutely disgusting. It has to end. I don't know how this happened.
We want to know why this person was issued a permit. When was he issued a permit?
No IRGC official was admitted to Canada.
What else can you tell me about the process there, ma'am?
The immigration minister gave little clarity.
IRGC has been listed as a terrorist organization. No officials are admissible to Canada.
But they were allowed to get to the airport. How were they allowed to get to the airport?
You don't know when this matter came to your attention?
Well, I mean, it was this is the week that we're talking about.
But after a grilling from MPs at the House Public Safety Committee,
so you're saying you're not accountable, Minister?
That I'm definitely accountable, but I would not have been part of that decision-making process.
the minister says Taj's documentation was canceled mid-flight, and her deputy minister promised the immigration department will do better.
It's absolutely my accountability to make sure that we don't find ourselves in this situation again.
I believe a mistake was made.
This lawyer is calling for more immigration oversight to ensure the safety of Canadians, especially before the massive flow of visitors when the World Cup begins in just a few weeks.
As an immigration lawyer for more than 25 years, I can tell you at the moment we are seeing a significant shortage of staff and significant delays, and I think people are rushing to meet the time frames of FIFA.
Immigration lawyers I spoke with say there's a serious problem at the Federal Immigration Department. Staff overworked, budget cuts, and they say they're aware of plenty of cases where border agents have had to intervene, denying entry to visitors who were given permission by the federal department to come to Canada.
And Olivia, there's still some uncertainty, I think, about Iran's role in the World Cup.
Yes, well, FIFA says Iran will play their 3 matches, all of them in the U.S. And today, President Donald Trump said that Iran should be allowed to play. Questions still remain, though, about how Taj got permission to travel to Canada and who authorized it. The Immigration Department only saying visa applications are assessed on a case-by-case basis by trained officers, Adrian.
All right, thank you. That is Olivia Stefanovich in Ottawa tonight. Almost 60 days after the start of the war with Iran, economic pain from the shipping blockades is mounting as peace talks are seemingly stalled. And as Katie Simpson shows us, there are now reports the White House is considering its military options yet again.
These things that we do are very important.
A familiar tune from the Oval Office, erratic messaging about the U.S. war in Iran.
We had Iran right from the first day. It was over. It was over. And now it's even more so. We're so locked and loaded if we want to do.
Even though Donald Trump says it's over, he was reportedly briefed on new military options, in part to break the stalemate in the Strait of Hormuz, where Iran continues to stop traffic and the U.S. is blocking Iranian ports.
Iran is proving to be very stubborn. The talks seem like they are stalled. Are you getting antsy to break the ceasefire?
Trump seemed to suggest he's leaning against new military strikes.
So, I don't know that we need it.
Iran pushing back with threats of its own in the form of a message. A note attributed to the supreme leader read on Iranian state TV, warning that U.S. military action is doomed to fail. The Ayatollah has not been seen or heard from publicly since his father was killed, with U.S. reports he's been severely wounded and disfigured. As this conflict drags on, shortages and disruptions continue to crush the global energy market.
The price of gasoline, of course, is very, very high. We expect that that's a temporary phenomenon.
The Trump administration now fending off attacks over the unpopularity of the war at a hearing in Congress.
That the American people are not supporting this war. You don't care whether the American people support this war.
The American people are quite smart. They understand and see through spin. They know that a regime that says death to America, that seeks nuclear weapons and the ability to deliver. Did they lie about the range of their missiles?
Friday marks 60 days since the war began, and by law, the White House needs congressional approval if it wants the military operation to continue. The defense secretary arguing those rules don't apply.
However, we are in a ceasefire right now.
The very powerful congressional House Speaker, Mike Johnson, a Republican, agrees with Hegseth, offering plenty of cover for the White House, arguing the U.S. is not at war with Iran and that he doesn't want to get in the way of negotiations. And Katie, then you have Iran's foreign minister suggesting those negotiations won't bear fruit anytime soon. Yeah, he's saying don't expect a quick resolution. He says Iran doesn't trust the U.S., especially when it comes to some of the things the regime is seeking, like sanctions relief. He says the White House is not serious. All right, that is Katie Simpson in Washington. Thanks, Katie. The effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz continues to pressure the global economy, but aid groups say it's the world's most vulnerable who are paying the greatest price. Sasha Petrusek now on the growing calls for a humanitarian corridor.
In South Sudan, emergency food drops keep some 8 million from starving. In Somalia, clinics run short on supplies as fuel costs double. My daughter has malnutrition, the mother says, and fever for 3 months now. The wait for food and medicine is getting longer and more uncertain as fallout from the U.S.-led war in Iran starts to strangle aid delivery.
And then they have to make even more tough choices about which lives to save and who to turn away.
At the UN, pleas for the Strait of Hormuz to reopen.
And the longer this vital artery is choked, the harder it will be to reverse the damage, and the higher the cost to humanity.
High fuel prices are a big part of the problem. The NGO Save the Children estimates that every $5 per barrel increase in the price of oil keeps them from feeding 40,000 children. A month's worth of food distribution gone.
I think important to recognize the direct, but also in particular the indirect effects of this global crisis, because it's not a regional crisis.
There are other challenges too. Much of the world's aid is stored in Dubai's massive warehouses, impossible to move out through a blocked Strait of Hormuz. Some NGOs are using alternate routes. For instance, a truck delivery to Afghanistan that goes through 8 countries instead of going directly across the strait. And instead of 1 week, it takes 5. Experts say one immediate solution would be for combatants to open a path for aid, the way Russia and Ukraine did for grain going through the Black Sea.
One area of agreement that both the U.S. and Iran have signaled is around humanitarian aid. And that means they should start their negotiation thinking about, in the Strait of Hormuz, having a humanitarian corridor.
Much needed to deliver aid to those who can't afford to wait. Sasha Petrusek, CBC News, Toronto.
Just days away from the 1-year anniversary of the disappearance of 2 young Nova Scotia children, police are appealing to the public to provide fact-based tips.
The information we need isn't necessarily speculation or thoughts or theories. We'd like information that actually points us in a direction to try and find out things that have taken place.
4-year-old Jack Sullivan and his 6-year-old sister Lilly were reported missing from their home on May the 2nd of last year. While their disappearance is still being treated as a missing persons case, police say the chances the children are still alive are very slim.
We can say that the Prairie Green landfill search has been fully completed. We've remediated our presence.
The search site for victims of a serial killer at a Winnipeg-area landfill has now been officially decommissioned. The remains of Morgan Harris and a Mercedes Myron were unearthed early last year. However, extensive work was needed to clear the area. The final cost was just over $18 million, a fraction of estimates made in 2023 when the previous government refused to carry out the search. Well, the Liberal government's plan to make it easier for Canadians to apply for a disability tax credit is being welcomed by those living with disabilities. Advocates say the changes are long overdue, but as Marina von Stackelberg shows us, some say they do not go far enough.
2010.
Anne Couglin has spent decades filling out medical paperwork. Her entire family is disabled. So it was a surprise when the Canada Revenue Agency said her son's disability tax credit had expired.
And I'm like, what on earth is this? He's still autistic.
That meant going back to his doctor with a new 16-page form, the exact same one they'd already filled out. It took an entire year before he was reapproved.
We're on a limited budget, very limited, and we couldn't afford for him to not have that money.
The disability tax credit is the gatekeeper to 13 other federal supports, like the $200 a month benefit. But the majority of disabled Canadians don't receive the credit, in part because the application process is so complicated. Now the Liberal government has promised to fix it.
It was onerous to begin with, number one. Doctors could fill it out only. And it was a 15, 16-page form. It took literally hours and hours for them to fill it out.
Ottawa now has a list of long-lasting medical conditions it will streamline applications for. And it will allow more types of medical professionals to fill out the form.
Now this streamlining will at least identify people who have significant disabilities, such as Down syndrome or cerebral palsy, will not have to prove over and over again that they have a disability.
But disability advocates say there are still too many barriers, because even if someone has proven to their province they're disabled, the federal government won't recognize it.
It's pretty bad that my own country is doing this to us, but I thank God every day that we have it, because we'd be on the street without the support. I know friends who have.
Some private companies are profiting off of Canadians desperate to get these supports, filling out the paperwork for people and then charging thousands of dollars. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Toronto's police chief is reaffirming he will investigate allegations of anti-Semitism within his force leveled by former homicide detective Hank Idsinga. But Idsinga has refused to participate.
Any allegations of this nature we take very, very seriously. We investigate thoroughly and completely.
Idsinga says he witnessed cases of anti-Semitism and racism during his 34 years in the force and had concerns about corruption in TPS's senior ranks. Idsinga tells CBC News he didn't respond to the invitation because he doesn't trust Toronto police to investigate itself. Well, new research shows AI can diagnose complex cases as well as, or maybe better than, doctors.
I think if we're looking at AI clear-eyed and straight in the face, we should feel both scared and excited.
So what happens when this powerful tool enters real emergency rooms? We take you inside one to find out. A second major furniture manufacturer in Quebec is shutting down in just 1 week.
Companies are not willing to invest a lot in, say, manufacturing or updating because they just don't know how things are going to be 1 or 2 years down the road.
Why the business blames U.S. tariffs for its downfall.
Oh my God.
And later, an unexpected polar bear stroll in northern Newfoundland. We're back in 2. Multiple reports tonight say a formal bid to purchase and relocate the Vancouver Whitecaps to Las Vegas is on the table, though it still needs approval from Whitecaps owners and the Major League Soccer to go through. The team has been for sale since 2024, reporting a multi-million-dollar revenue shortfall. Still, according to Forbes, the Whitecaps are worth more than $600 million. Well, a new study says artificial intelligence can outperform ER doctors when it comes to diagnoses. The technology finds patterns in data, and the results show it's landing on solid answers. Christine Birak takes us inside an ER to find out what that could mean for the future of healthcare.
What happened here?
A man comes in after a fall, but something's off with his heart. For ER doctor Noor Khatib, the clock is ticking to find the cause.
You're going to cardiovert him now? Okay, let's do it.
In the ER, everything's high stakes. Cases can be complex, and decisions come fast. Researchers wanted to know if artificial intelligence could reason like an ER doctor. And this newly published American research suggests it can. Using the newest generation of AI, 5 observational test studies found the AI outperformed physician baselines. On complicated cases, its diagnosis was correct, roughly 8 out of 10 times.
It doesn't mean that computers can do medicine. It means that within this narrow task, it can solve diagnoses better than humans, which is exciting, but is only the beginning of the conversation.
AI is not going to be a replacement. It might be another tool for us, a great tool for us.
At Ontario's Oak Valley Health, they're doing a pilot.
So when the AI tool starts, I click on transcribe.
Using AI to streamline note-taking.
Basically, help me spend more time with the patient, less time on the screen.
More than 80% of U.S. doctors now say they're using AI in their work, including platforms like Open Evidence. But there are limits.
The study evaluated the quality of the AI's reasoning or diagnosis in ERs. It did not look at the safety or the outcome for patients. The authors stress it would make sense as a second opinion, but say there can be downsides as well.
There was a study about AI-supported colonoscopy, and what it found was that the gastroenterologists that got used to using AI actually started performing worse when they stopped using the AI. So there can be a dependence and there can be a skill erosion over time.
Doctors need experience to judge whether AI is offering sound advice, but no one disputes its potential.
I think if we're looking at AI clear-eyed and straight in the face, we should feel both scared and excited.
I'll ask you to take a deep breath.
With guardrails, doctors do hope it can safely be used as a tool to help care reach more people. Christine Burak, CBC News, Markham, Ontario.
A second Quebec furniture maker has shut its doors this week, raising fears of more fallout across the country.
They deliver their goods in Canada lower than their production cost in a way that we cannot compete.
How tariffs and global competition are squeezing manufacturers. After the break, Rosie's here with that issue. Hello.
Hey, Adrian. Tonight, we're going to talk about Canada's economic outlook, following, of course, that spring update.
I think Canadians have seen that we are a serious fiscal manager. Canada has a solid financial position.
So, do Canada's investments in defense spending, skilled workers justify the size of the deficit? Chantal, Althea, and Andrew join me to talk about that and a whole lot more.
King Charles and Queen Camilla wrapped up their 4-day state visit to the U.S. with the laying of a wreath at Arlington National Cemetery. They also visited the Canadian Cross of Sacrifice. It honors Americans who fought for this country in the First World War before the U.S. joined the battle. Well, BC MP Jonathan Wilkinson, a former Justin Trudeau cabinet minister, has been named Canada's next ambassador to the EU. In a statement today, Prime Minister Mark Carney cited Wilkinson's 10 years in Parliament and his experience as an executive at clean technology companies. Wilkinson will have to vacate his seat in order to take on the appointment, making the Liberal majority a bit slimmer and eventually leading to a by-election in his North Vancouver Capilano riding. Well, there is new evidence Canada's furniture manufacturing sector is hurting. 2 long-standing Quebec companies have shut their doors for good in the span of just 1 week. Corbina Oduro now with what is causing these closures and the concerns about what comes next.
Nadège Coutu has worked at Quebec-based furniture maker Bestar for 3 years. Now she's among 175 people let go, the company shutting down operations. People are very sad, she says. Sales have been way down at Bestar since the pandemic. But the company says U.S. tariffs have made business unsustainable, with foreign competitors now flooding Canada with cheap alternatives.
What we can call dumping. They deliver their goods in Canada lower than their production cost in a way that we cannot compete.
It's the pride of Quebec, says Bestar VP Martin Tardif. But Bestar is now the second furniture manufacturer in the province to close its doors this week. On Monday, South Shore Furniture in Quaticook, Quebec ceased operations. Sales there also down 77% since 2022. South Shore and Bestar were considered cornerstones of the Canadian furniture industry. Both companies founded more than 75 years ago.
It's also an expertise that have been developed since almost a century. So when you lose that kind of expertise, it's pretty hard to get it back after. So it's very disastrous.
Experts warn an unpredictable administration in the White House could mean more Canadian businesses will be forced to close their doors for good.
Companies are not willing to invest a lot in, say, manufacturing or updating because they just don't know how things are going to be 1 or 2 years down the road.
Last week, the federal government launched an inquiry into manufactured wood products. The goal, they say, is to protect Canadian companies from unfair foreign competition. For companies weathering the storm, some form of change can't come soon enough. Cubino Ruro, CBC News, Montreal.
Prime Minister Mark Carney has unveiled his latest spending plans for Canada, and Rosie's here with that issue to break it all down.
At issue tonight, the spring economic update. Canada's deficit is smaller than expected, with the finance minister crediting his government's bookkeeping.
I think Canadians have seen that we are a serious fiscal manager. Canada has a solid financial position.
The Conservatives are questioning the level of spending and the size of the deficit.
Carney's doubled Trudeau's deficit from $31 billion to $65 billion. What's changed? More cost? More debt?
So what's to be made of where Canada is spending its money, and does it justify the size of the deficit now? I'm Rosemary Barton, here to break it all down tonight. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj. So we were debating before whether we would make Chantal go first because she wasn't with us on Tuesday. Out of kindness, I will go to Andrew first because Andrew always has a lot to say about budgets. And now that we're a couple days after, I wonder whether you've thought any more about where the spending is directed, and the fact that a lot of it is still deficit spending, and that is the key criticism of the Conservatives.
Well, yeah, and it's more spending than the Liberals precededly, more than Justin Trudeau ever spent. It's more than they'd promised to spend in the fall budget. So every time the Liberal government, whether it's Trudeau or Carney, issues a new forecast or a new statement of the thing, the spending limits always seem to be nowhere in sight. They just simply spend more. They simply upgrade their objections every 6 months. This time, they didn't increase, in previous budgets or statements, they would increase spending from 6 months before by $10 or $20 billion a year. This time, they held it to like $6 to $8 billion. So they took virtually all of the fiscal windfall from higher oil prices and spent something like 97% of it, and asked to be congratulated for their fiscal discipline. Look, it could be a lot worse. There's not a lot in this budget, in this statement, I should say, or this update, that's bad or that's going to take us in the wrong direction. There's just not a lot that's going to take us in the right direction. There's just an overall sense of complacency. The government seems quite happy with economic growth of 1.7% per year ad infinitum. It seems quite happy to be running deficits of 2% of GDP 6 years after the last recession, so at the top of the business cycle. It's, the fastest growing spending item in the budget is not for health or defense or anything else. It's interest on the debt, which not so long ago was 6 cents in every dollar, is now headed for 12 or 13 cents in the dollar, $80 billion 5 years from now. It's not a crisis, let's say, it's not an emergency, but it's a high degree of complacency in the face of gathering storm clouds.
Okay, so I started with the right person, is my point. So let me go to Chantal now, because we haven't heard you yet. What do you make of what you saw and what Andrew's saying there? Some of the things that should be, maybe orange flags, if not red flags.
So looking from some distance. For one, I think this fiscal update was kind of a return to some normalcy in the sense that fiscal updates over the Trudeau era were almost new budgets. This was not the case, which to many people makes it more boring. But otherwise, I thought, that all week I was hearing the chains of a ghost rattling in the background, and that ghost would be called Paul Martin. And why do I say that? And I'm not going into the numbers, I'm going into the perception and politics. When Mark Carney became Prime Minister, given his credentials, I think a lot of people expected a virage, some some resetting of the way we handle fiscal policy. And he did say in an earlier scrum some months ago, this will be about austerity, which I don't think Andrew found, and I didn't find that either. But back last November, people thought, well, the government is still a minority government, so there's not a big shift. What this fiscal update actually did is it kind of seemed like a prolongation of the Trudeau era. You've got room to maneuver, and you do not use it for rigor or austerity, whatever you want to call it. You use it to spend on something else. And I think on that score, the update failed on expectations of more rigor.
So I wonder what you make of that, Althea, because I think both of our colleagues here are right. And I wonder if that means that the austerity is to come, that this is sort of the transitional document. I don't know. What do you make of those ideas?
I had no expectations, so I was not disappointed.
Wise policy.
How smart of you, yes, yes.
It's kind of sad, though.
You can see in the back of the fiscal update that they have renewed program funding for 1 year in a bunch of different areas.
Yeah.
So there were a bunch of programs that were going to sunset at the end of March, and it seems like temporarily renewed them while they review them. So to your point about austerity, it could be coming. I mean, already you hear in the public service that there are a lot of cuts and a lot of, even outside of Ottawa, regional offices that will be seriously impacted. So I do think there is an argument to be made that there is austerity. I mean, we talked about this on Tuesday, but I was surprised to see no mention of pharmacare in this document whatsoever when you have at least 2 provinces that have seriously asked the government to sit down at the bargaining table to have the same plan that has been offered to, say, the Yukon or Manitoba. There is no extra money for childcare. There is no extra money for mental health or long-term care. There's also things that, frankly, would have gotten huge headlines in the Stephen Harper era. This idea of privatizing airports or ports and selling that off to potentially, foreign capital, foreign assets. So I think there's quite a bit in here. I think politically this document is also interesting, not because it's an election document, it's obviously not an election document, but where they have chosen to spend money is basically where Pierre Poilievre has gone courting votes. So yes, on the gas tax, that's a huge chunk of the update, but also on the skills trade. You know, Dan Arnold, the Liberals' former pollster, who is now at Polera, had some interesting data where he showed that millennial men are now coming to Mark Carney. And you can see a consistent effort to court the male vote. And I don't think this update is not political in that sense. I think it's quite a political document.
Chantal?
Of course it is, but I still think, and I was looking at the parliamentary budget officer's initial comments on it, it is vague to the point of lacking in accountability.
Yep.
There is no measure of anything in there. And I know we're going to get to that wealth fund at some point, but it would help if the government provided guidelines as to what anything that it does is meant to accomplish. I also think that there's a crowd out there that will still hope or wait in the fall for the equivalent of the 1995 Paul Martin budget, a budget that kind of resets the way that you budget. And at this point, that has not happened.
Last minute to you, Andrew.
Well, you sort of wonder if not now, when. You've got your majority. You're only a year into your government, so you've got lots of time left to recover if you have to do something that's politically unpopular. So this would be, conventional wisdom would say, when you were going to do your tough budget, if you were ever going to do it. So the fact that they're not suggests that it's unlikely to get any tougher from here. But you can see how we become prisoners of expectations, merely to that because they didn't push spending to the outer limits of what Justin Trudeau might have dreamed of doing, doesn't mean we have an austerity budget. In real per capita terms, they're going to be spending this year upwards of $10,500 per person after inflation, 10% more than the Justin Trudeau government did on average, 20% more than the Stephen Harper government did on average. So 20% more dollars after inflation per citizen is not my definition of austerity. I don't think it's anybody's.
Okay, we're going to leave that conversation there. We'll come back and Althea, you'll start us off. We'll take a look at the Conservatives pushing back on the Liberal forcing committees behind closed doors. Are the Liberals stifling debate or just using the powers of their new majority? That's next. At issue in-camera committees, the Conservatives are pushing back on the Liberals using their majority to force committee debate behind closed doors.
As we have a number of studies to consider and we want to be working well together as a team, I would like to suggest that we move in camera.
You should let us have our discussion because we will not be silenced. We've had where one Liberal member has occupied the committee business for how long, and to simply be trying to close off and to bring zero debate.
The Liberal House Leader says the committees are working well.
Committees are masters of their own agenda. We discuss issues every day. There's going to be lots of debate, I can assure you.
So what's being made of the pushback, committees going in camera, closing the doors, not letting the public see the debate? Let's bring everyone back. Chantal, Andrew, and Althea. And I'm not suggesting that the public is all sitting there watching committees all day. But when we were talking about this in this bureau this week, Aaron Wary reminded me that we saw a very similar pattern during the Harper era, Harper majority. A lot of this happened. And the Conservatives are pretty angry. It's happened 4 times this week. In 4 different committees. Althea, what do you make of it and what does it tell you?
Well, it's not just that the public cannot see what is happening, that we journalists cannot see what is happening. There's actually no historical record of what has happened. There's no transcript of what happens behind closed doors. So this is a reason why last week when we first talked about this, I said I thought it was a bit rich. I don't remember exact my words, but that the Liberals had added two Liberals to every committee. And basically the Liberals have given themselves the power to take over committees. So the opposition doesn't even have the tool of like walking out and trying to prevent quorum from happening. The Liberals can do whatever they want. And so the onus, frankly, is on Liberal MPs. They have a responsibility. They are not there to do the bidding of the government. They are there to represent their constituents. They're actually there to hold the government accountable. They are not members of the executive. Cabinet ministers don't sit on parliamentary committees. And so they also need to serve as a check. Now, I understand the Conservatives have used committees to aggrandize themselves, to put clips on social media, to fundraise. Sometimes they've been quite obstructionist. But some of the things that they suggested this week are entirely reasonable. Like, for example, requiring PCO to provide regular updates on the Prime Minister's ethical screen on Brookfield, that seems entirely reasonable. And as Justin Trudeau used to say, sunshine is the best disinfectant.
So what would be the point of this tactically, Chantal? Like, I just don't understand why, if you've got your majority, and you have control of the committees, why the committees can't just do their work so that people know what they're doing.
So government insiders tonight would have you believe that all of a sudden in 4 committees, Liberal MPs woke up with a personal initiative to do this. I find that very hard to believe.
No kidding.
It's like the light came on in every brain at the same time. But in any event, this is a dangerous thing to do for the government. I'm not going to go into accountability, but rather this is a government that has a very fragile majority, one that can be questioned by some on legitimacy. There will be by-elections. If you are going to spend the time between now and then convincing Canadians that the reason you wanted a majority was to shut down debate, good luck, because one day you will start losing seats. And at some point you will lose that very fragile majority. So of all of the things you can think that were smart to do this week, getting a majority and using it to do this is probably one of the dumbest moves that one has seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, there's at least 2 by-elections, right? Jonathan Wilkinson now on the West Coast and Alexandre Boulris. So, and maybe Nate Erskine-Smith, we'll see. Yeah, so, but there might be others. But this is a party that lost
ridings like St. Paul's in Toronto and ridings in downtown Montreal not that long ago. So the notion that they are suddenly sheltered from anything that they do that would have no consequences is really short-sighted.
Andrew, what do you make of it?
Well, of course, that's precisely why they wanted the majority, was to do things like this. So there's only revealing what was actually true. This government, even as a minority, was in no danger of falling, not when you're 15 points ahead in the polls. The issue was, how fast could you ram stuff through Parliament? And for that, you need control of the committees. It is one of the more risible comments of recent times is Stephen McKinnon saying that the committees are masters of their own agenda. I don't think 5-year-olds believe that anymore. Althea's point in particular, I think, is worth restating. It's not just MPs in general, it's government MPs in particular who are abstaining from their proper role as watchdogs on the government. I know it's been a long time since MPs on the government side of any stripe have actually done that, but this is a big part of the problem with our system right now is there's really no effort to hold the government to account on the government side at all. They really do see themselves as foot soldiers for the government agenda. So do the opposition MPs for their party, but at least the opposition's role is to expose government wrongdoing and to question government misdeeds. It may be a partisan objective, but it serves the public interest to have that done. It's not that this is terribly new, as was mentioned. This is the sort of thing you saw under the Harper government. The difference here is not conservative versus liberal. It's majority versus minority governments. This is why I'm not a huge fan of majority governments. Is any kind of accountability goes out the window. It's hard enough under minority governments. We've seen under the recent minority governments where committees would demand documents from the government and the government would simply stonewall them, again, of both parties, would simply stonewall and refuse the documents. The difference with the majority is the committees won't even ask for the documents now.
Althea?
A few things. I think what's more dangerous is the sort of norm busting that it creates. Because when I think back to this Harper majority, I don't recall a week that was quite like this when it comes to committees. Absolutely, they used the majority to shut down investigations and motions they didn't want to deal with. But there was a bit more trading. There are certain things that the Conservatives want, like let's look at the veterans, the impact of the budget on veterans. Why not let the Conservatives have that study and you say, but then we're not going to support you on this other study? They should be cooperating with each other. And I'm more worried about the standard that it sets, because if you're continuously lowering the bar, then the next government comes in and does exactly the same thing. The other thing I think that we should not be blind to, and I think it's worth mentioning to the audience, is Mark Carney is kind of floating the idea of a future cabinet shuffle. And so you have a lot of MPs who want to get into cabinet, who believe that if they just do the government's bidding in the short time, they would be in a better position to get a cabinet post.
Okay, I got to leave it there, sadly. Thank you all. I appreciate those smart thoughts. That's at issue on the national anyway. We're going to keep talking. As Chantal suggested, we're going to talk about the Sovereign Wealth Fund and what the idea is behind it and whether it will work. You can catch that on YouTube or, of course, our podcast. Now back to Adrienne in Toronto.
Thanks, Rosie. Coming up, a polar bear takes a leisurely walk through a northern Newfoundland town.
I'm in an upstairs bedroom window staring down at the polar bear.
Whoa. So she was close, but not too close. That's next in our moment. Check out this rather rare sighting from a small town in Newfoundland. A large polar bear spotted strolling through a neighborhood in St. Anthony. So when Christy Hurley saw the bear on her parents' security camera, she ran to her upstairs window, smart, to get a better view. Her close encounter makes our moment.
Whoa. Okay. Oh my God. There was a polar bear on my parents' security camera. I seen just a nice little white furry motion in the camera in the corner, and I took off. I'm in an upstairs bedroom window staring down at the polar bear. Hello, bear. I'm just watching him do his little simple walk, just waddling that butt of his. They take their belly flop into the snow and slide down over. That's amazing. He was on a mission to get to the ocean. Polar bears are not native to the island at all. So it's just, you want to say once in a lifetime moment that you're going to actually see something so ginormous, so big. And even more exciting the next day to go out and actually put my hand in that paw print. Oh wow, okay, that was even bigger than it looked. Whoa, okay. Oh my God, how fortunate am I to be so close? Wow, kind of wow moment.
So we have folks on our team from Newfoundland who are saying even they didn't know that polar bears hung out there. So the St. Anthony's website says yes, occasionally they come into the town in the spring because they're migrating north seeking food, but they're pretty rare to see, very rare to get on camera. So lucky you, Christy. From all of us at the National, thanks for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.